Good afternoon, everybody. We're here today on National Preparedness Day with Princeton's Emergency Management Director, Bob Gregory, and Princeton's Health Officer, Jeff Grosser, to talk about being prepared for a disaster. We've seen some powerful storms lately, and being prepared for a lengthy power outage is a big concern. Bob's going to talk about what you can do to prepare your house and supplies you may need to shelter in place without power. Jeff's going to show you what items you might need, food, water, medications, etc., to have in a kit, and talk a little bit about what happens to the food in your refrigerator freezer when the power goes out. Bob, I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you. So I guess I'll start talking about generators, because that's always the biggest question I get is what type of generator should I get? So I recommend people look at all options out there. There are generators that are fuel-fired, that are hardwired into your circuit breakers, and they run anywhere from diesel fuel to natural gas. There are also new and upcoming technology with solar generators, and they act a little bit more like your gas-fired generators that you would get in Home Depot, Lowe's, any of those places where you do have to run extension cords. But the solar are a little more safe because you don't have the carbon monoxide. So they don't kind of last as long sometimes, depending on how much backup the solar cell has, but they're much safer. And then, of course, your gas-powered generators are widespread. Most people have them, and the biggest thing you have to remember is that they produce carbon monoxide, so they have to be outside, and you have to run the extension cords into your house and plug them into whatever is most important to you. Usually a refrigerator, lighting, things of that nature. The second big thing that I'm always asked about is evacuation. What do we do for evacuation? And pretty much in the state of New Jersey, the state through the counties to the local municipalities, their strategy is to shelter in place unless your house becomes inhabitable. So what does that mean? Well, clearly if there's enough wind that it tears off your roof, you have a tree come down on your house starts to flood with water. I mean, we've had some in Princeton that the flooding goes up to the first, all the way up to a first floor from the basement. At that point, we would have to, move a person to a shelter location. But the majority out there are sheltering in place, meaning you're staying with your home, even if you don't have heat, lights, electric, so on. So what can you do? Well, one of the first things I always tell people, if you have a sump pump, right, get the generator at least for that to keep your sump pump going, because that'll reduce the flooding. Other than that, though, things you need to remember, and I know Jeff is going to talk about some of the practical medical food things, but blankets, clothes, make sure you have dry clothes. Make sure get backup devices to charge your cell phones and computers so you can stay on top of what's happening. And then also, most municipalities, we do it here in Princeton, we have locations where you can go and get a cup of coffee and recharge your batteries in your cell phones and computers. So those are the big questions that I always get about what to do in a weather emergency or just a plain old power outage. Those are the top questions, and that's what we recommend that individuals do. And I know Jeff can speak a little bit more to medications and food, and so I'll let him take that away.
Great. So thanks, Bob, and happy National Preparedness Month to everyone out there. So Bob really talked about the necessities, what you think about when you do your normal emergency preparedness planning. From the health perspective, it's a little bit more detailed when it comes to just trying to stay comfortable, stay healthy, and keep things sanitary. I'm going to break up what we think about and what we try to educate residents about into three main parts. The first being water, the second being food supplies, and then the third, first aid and sanitary conditions. First, regarding water, the Centers for Disease Control suggests that 1 gallon per person per day is what is required in the event of what Bob Gregory is talking about with respect to sheltering in place. So that 1 gallon should fit your hydration needs as well as your cleaning needs, washing hands, brushing your teeth, washing your face. So that 1 gallon should last. So in a family of 4, we recommend 3 days supply. You need 12 gallons of water. And that's the recommendation from the Centers for Disease Control. If you have pets, which sometimes we think about ourselves and we think about what we need, you need to also think about what your pet needs. Your pet would typically only need about 1 gallon for those 3 days. So add an extra gallon in there if you have a dog or cat at home, and then that's 1 gallon for each animal. Regarding food supplies, our mantra is, and we follow the CDC's mantra, is when you check your clocks and you change them back or push them forward, check your food stocks. So go through the foods that you have in your house. If you have an emergency supply, make sure you're checking the dates on those items. Foods have varying expiration dates, and we always tell people when you put together a food supply for preparedness and for emergencies, don't experiment. Try foods or put together foods that you're accustomed to eating. I've got a couple here. Canned peas or vegetables, they typically last anywhere from 2 to 3 years. This can is dented, so if it's on your shelf, try to dispose of this. But keep these in a space that you're going to be able to check the dates frequently. Black beans, these typically last anywhere from 4 to 5 years. And again, you want to check the condition of the can, make sure it's not rusty, and make sure it hasn't been opened. But these are pretty easy to maintain products that you can utilize. If you want to get a little classier, you can go to risotto or rice. Of course, you have to cook this, so if you have gas in your home and you still have gas services, you could still technically boil this in water. But this will actually last anywhere from 5 to 7 years. So you can put these away and make sure you have these products. Now, if you have children, again, you need to make sure you have baby food. Baby food doesn't last as long, typically only 1 year to 2 years. And again, babies are only eating baby food for so long, so this stock is not as imperative, but make sure you don't forget about the young children at home. Other products, everybody's got peanut butter for the most part, unless you have allergies. Again, another great product, 3 to 4 years on the shelf, and it'll last. And lastly, when we think about losing power, we think about bad weather, and what better than to have some hot cocoa. Hot cocoa will, again, last 4 to 5 years. It's a great product to have on the shelf, and it also will treat some of maybe the comfort needs if you need some comfort through chocolate. So that's really the food side. And again, one of the best food sources you have in your home during emergencies, as Bob talked about, is your refrigerator. If you don't have an emergency generator, your fridge is going to act like a ticking time bomb. You literally have to start acting on that food. I tell people when you do emergency preparedness, if you don't have a generator, your fridge it's time to clean it out. So you either want to use the leftovers from last night immediately, or you want to start working through the fridge to see what foods you need to dispose of. This is, again, not a time to experiment with the ranch dressing that was in the back of your fridge for 4 years. If you smell it or you look at it, if it looks funny or smells funny, you need to dispose of it. And remember, if you have the capabilities to cook, cooking will not kill all microorganisms. So again, you want to use foods that are within the expiration date. You have about 4 to 6 hours after your power goes out where your fridge will keep a constant temperature that's still in the safe zone for the food being where you want it. After that, you're really beyond the point of no return. That food will most likely have to be disposed of, and we get phone calls about that all the time at the health department. Again, as Bob Gregory mentioned, if it's hooked up to a generator, you don't have many concerns. Just keep it running, make sure the food supply doesn't get below the threshold of that fridge. But newer fridges, will keep their temperature for a long time. Now, your freezer is really your best solution if you talk about, okay, well, what other types of foods can I have in times of emergencies? Your freezer will typically last the food in there about 2 to 3 days after an emergency when the power goes out. So after you go from the fridge, move to the freezer, and then you can turn to your emergency supplies last. Again, if there's any questions about any of this, we have a lot of resources on our website regarding food safety and emergencies. Lastly, actually, I'm sorry, one more point. Make sure you have a can opener with your cans because, again, if you're out of power and you don't have a generator, your electric can opener won't work. So just make sure you have one of these handy somewhere. Lastly, regarding first aid, every house should have a first aid kit. Because when emergencies happen, you might be lifting things or moving things you might not normally do. If you get scratches in your hands or anywhere else in your body or cuts, you want to make sure that you're protecting those so you don't get an infection, because at times you may be cut off from medical care or even a trip to the doctor's office or the pharmacy. So make sure you have a first aid kit to care for wounds. You also can keep, and it's kind of a small container, hand sanitizer, which will help keep some things clean. And also make sure you have some medications available that might be either something you take every day or a product like a cough medicine, something like that. Just check the expiration date. But regarding prescription drugs, make sure you have a decent supply of those at all times. Don't wait till you get the last few pills or last few drops to replace. And lastly, regarding sanitary conditions, make sure most houses have bleach. Bleach is a great cleaning solution. We try to educate residents about, if you have to in a pinch, you can use a cap of bleach for a quart of water, and really it becomes a great cleaning solution. It also becomes a great disinfectant. So let's say you run out of water. If you have to collect rainwater, you can actually disinfect old containers with that solution of a cap for every quart of water. So really, those are the biggest things from the health perspective, especially when, as we talked about, sheltering in place that you can do. If you need any other resources or any literature on that, the health department has its own little emergency preparedness section where we provide a lot of literature on what you can do to make a kit for your home.
Okay. Bob, do you have anything else?
Yep, a couple things. So cooking, I get a lot of questions about, can I use my gas grill? Yes. Absolutely. And the only thing I would say is, if it's left outside in the storm, once the storm's over, you could take just a little spray bottle with water and some soap. Make sure none of the hoses are leaking before you start it up. And don't bring it in the garage or into the house to cook. You use it outside. The other question I always get is 911. So 911 is up and running during storms, and if you have an emergency, dial 911 and emergency personnel will come out to you to handle your emergency. And so two of the biggest things, one is gas. If your house is fed by natural gas and you smell gas in the house or outside of the house, evacuate and call 911. The other is clearly medical and fire, right? If you have a medical emergency, you smell smoke, something burning, again, 911 to report that, because we staff a large number of people during storms to make sure we can respond. The other thing I want to mention too, like Jeff said, is on the website, the health department website, emergency services, you can find, in Princeton, you can find links to FEMA, or you can go right to FEMA.gov, and they have a lot of preparedness information on their website. And there's also another thing in town, the last thing I'll touch on. A lot of individuals usually ask, if I have a special need, like I use oxygen, how will you know that? Well, you can go on Register Ready website. Just search for it in your web browser and you'll find it. And you can actually put your information in there, and they will get that information to me. And then we put it in our police dispatch so that if something happens at your home, when the police, fire, EMS, or dispatch, they know that there's oxygen in the house.
Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions, you can always call Access Princeton at 924-4141, or you can reach out to the Health Department or Emergency Management. Have a great day.